and even to the regulatory agencies that were supposed to keep them honest. All that well-spent cash guaranteed that the random suffering and body count caused by their products was generally overlooked as the price of doing business. "We know Beckmeyer's already circled up the wagons," Deke said. "They're going to do anything they can to protect their cash cow. And they'll be able to do just that if dysfunctional judges like Beatles continue to treat Ranadol like a sacred cow," said Angus. Neither man was overstating their case. Ranadol generated a profit of almost $5 billion a year, and Beckmeyer used that war chest to do everything it could to protect its venerated product. The multinational corporation combated medical critics and consumer protection groups by relying on selective clinical studies that whitewashed adverse events as being unusual or as being unrelated to the use of Ranadol. Beckmeyer's spin doctors were the best in the world, using clinical data to their best advantage. Not so surprisingly, much of the so-called clinical data cited had been created through Beckmeyer's own drug trials. "Who guards the guards?" asked Deke. Thousands of years ago, the Roman poet Juvenal had asked that question. The American public wanted to believe that regulators like the FDA were watching out for them, but that was an ill-placed hope. While the FDA might not overtly be in bed with the big pharmaceuticals, their relationship was certainly a cozy one. "Annika told me you were her hero," Kara said. "She told me no one else was willing to take her case." "Yeah, some hero," replied Deke. "A lot of good I did her." "You're not done." "That's right," he said. "We're nowhere near done." After 4 hours of bad dreams, Deke welcomed some early morning quiet time with Terry. Deke and Terry had been married for north of 30 years. He thanked his lucky stars that Terry had agreed to spend her life with him. He was always happy to be in her company, and Terry's charm made most people overlook Deke's prickles. Even after finishing her cup of coffee, Kara looked exhausted. She had to be more tired than Deke had imagined. Normally, she was the bounce-back kid. In high school, she'd played 2 sports and been the captain of her soccer team. He supposed Annika's death had laid her low and that she was grieving in her own way. Deke intended to grieve in another. He'd make Beckmeyer pay. "Why don't you take the day off?" Deke suggested. Kara smiled slightly. "I'll be fine." "I'll be glad to take the day off," said a male voice. Deke looked up at his son Andy. As usual, he was the last one in the family to get up. "Judging by your last report card," Deke said, "you took all of the last semester off." Terry gave Andy a hug, even though he made the act look like he was a victim of torture. "How about I make you a plate of eggs?" she asked. Andy made the sign of a cross as if he were warding off Dracula. "I'll have some toast," he told her. He put in his earbuds and raised his hoodie. Andy signaled that he didn't want to be bothered. Deke gestured for him to remove the earbuds, which Andy did reluctantly. "What?" he asked. "Your mom tells me you were chosen to be one of the 3 conquistadors," Deke said. Part of Spanish Trace's Spring Festival was the historical reenactment of 3 Spanish explorers landing in Florida in 1539. It was an honor to be chosen as one of the 3 conquistadors, but his 17-year-old son acted nonchalant. "So what?" "We better get to work, Dad," said Kara. His daughter and wife both acted as peacemakers between father and son. For the past year, it seemed that neither father nor son could have a civil conversation with the other. "That's right, Miss Perfect," said Andy in a sing-song voice. "You better get to work." Deke rolled his eyes and gave his daughter a sympathetic look. Kara was learning that no good deed goes unpunished. Terry offered them both a conciliatory smile. It was her belief that Andy was just going through a phase. And he wasn't done. "What do you get when you cross the Godfather with a big-mouth lawyer?" he asked, with his very best smart-ass edge. When no one answered, he said, "An offer you can't understand." Deke found himself clenching his jaw. Having teenage kids had forced him to develop a fair degree of self-control. When provoked, he had a fierce temper, but around his family he always managed to rein it in. And he must have decided he'd created enough discord. He put his earbuds back in, raised his hoodie, and left the kitchen, chewing on a piece of toast. When Deke and Kara commuted to work together, his daughter usually talked non-stop, but 5 minutes into the drive she hadn't uttered a word. At first, Deke thought she was preoccupied, but then he heard Kara's heavy breathing and saw she'd fallen asleep. Maybe she'd awakened from her nap refreshed.